We get a mathematical calculation of the degradation of the number of missiles and drones they've been able to fire. Number two, we have an account. Yes, we have.
Well,
we have an accounting.
Building new missiles and drones every day.
They have talked about their capacity.
We have an accounting every day of how many ships we've sunk, and so we are.
But I guess I wonder, I mean, the two perhaps most important
they constantly harass ships.
The two most important elements of this are going to be the nukes and this idea that are they going to export terrorism. I don't think we've seen any evidence that either of those two things have actually been.
In today's video, Abby Phillip obliterated Scott Jennings on NewsNight with Abby Phillip as a heated debate erupts over the Iran conflict, the shutdown fight involving the US, Department of Homeland Security, and the risks around the Strait of Hormuz. Abby Phillip pushes back on the shifting narrative while Scott Jennings tries to defend the administration's approach and messaging. So let's dive in and watch how Abby Phillip shuts down Scott Jennings on NewsNight with Abby Phillip.
We are 12 days into this war, and for us and for the rest of the world outside of Iran, China, and India, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. So we are effectively unprepared for this moment.
Well, I mean, as you said, we're 12, 13 days into this, and I suspect that over the next few days, we will be working with international partners to open it up. I don't know whether it will happen within the next 24 hours, 48, or what have you, but it's obviously a priority. I agree with Joe. This is really the last thing Iran is capable of doing, and so we have to destroy their capabilities of doing that. It seems to me, given the fact that they have been intermittently attacking all their neighbors in the Gulf, the other Arab states, that they would have some interest in possibly over time ensuring that the strait remains open. So I think it's sort of fashionable to freak out and have a meltdown when you oppose something in the first place. But again, we're in the middle of the second week of this. We have pummeled their offensive capabilities. We have destroyed nearly all of their air defenses. I mean, I think we are currently meeting our objectives. I think the issue you raised
about
about
our objectives?
No nukes, no missiles and drones, no aggressive Navy, no exporting of terrorism.
Based on what?
Period.
Based on what intelligence? Based on what evidence?
You don't think Iran is the largest state sponsor of terror, that they pursue nuclear weapons,
I think
that they have
asking,
missiles and drones, and they have
evidence,
an aggressive Navy?
What's the evidence that we've met those objectives?
Yeah.
How do you know when it ends?
Well, we have a severe, in the daily Pentagon briefings, we get a mathematical calculation of the degradation of the number of missiles and drones they've been able to fire. Number two, we have an account. Yes, we have.
Well,
we have an accounting.
Building new missiles and drones every day.
They have talked about their capacity.
We have an accounting every day of how many ships we've sunk, and so
we are. But I guess I wonder, the two perhaps most important.
They constantly harass ships.
The two most important elements of this are going to be the nukes and this idea that are they going to export terrorism. I don't think we've seen any evidence that either of those two things have actually been halted.
I think the nuclear, just to answer your question, to me, the nuclear piece is the most important piece. The president set a red line. I'm never going to permit them to have nuclear weapons. They went to the table with our negotiators, and their opening position was,
where are they?
We have the material to do 11.
Yeah, I guess
that's what we have to take away.
I get that we know that they said that they had it, but I'm asking, do we know that we've destroyed it? Do we
We've not
have it in our
yet.
possession?
No.
So that's going to be a key question.
The real issue usually goes beyond political talking points and into whether the strategy being described actually matches what's happening on the ground. Military analysts have repeatedly pointed out that early claims of degrading capabilities in modern conflicts can be misleading, especially when the adversary relies on decentralized weapon systems. Iran's missile and drone programs, for example, are spread across multiple underground facilities and mobile launch platforms, which means destroying a portion of them doesn't necessarily eliminate the overall capability. Reports from international security institutes have also shown that Iran spent years building redundant infrastructure precisely to survive limited strikes and continue operating even under heavy pressure. Another piece that often gets overlooked in these conversations is the global economic impact tied to the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply moves through that narrow corridor, according to energy market data. When shipping traffic slows or insurance costs spike because of military risk, the effect shows up quickly in global energy prices and supply chains. That's why even temporary disruptions there can cause ripple effects in fuel prices, airline costs, and transportation logistics around the world. It's also why international naval coalitions have historically stepped in to keep that passage open, since the economic consequences of a prolonged closure would extend far beyond the Middle East. And then there's the nuclear question, which is far more complicated than simply declaring victory after a strike. Experts from the International Atomic Energy Agency have repeatedly emphasized that eliminating a nuclear program requires more than bombing facilities. It requires verification, inspections, and long-term monitoring of enriched material and scientific infrastructure. Without that kind of oversight, knowledge and stockpiles can survive even if physical sites are damaged. That's why many analysts argue that transparency and clear evidence matter, because strategic claims don't mean much unless there's verifiable proof behind them.
And that's part of the problem. This whole mission has been a disaster. And I think it's an unmitigated...
For who? Iran?
It's an unmitigated disaster. It's an unmitigated disaster for the world, for the United States of America. Maybe it's funny to you, but...
It's funny to me that you're hoping that we lose this war to Iran.
I never said that.
Who's it a disaster for?
It's a disaster for the 170 school children who were killed by our U.S. Tomahawk missile. It's a disaster. It's a disaster for the. It's a disaster for the 7 U.S. soldiers. The 7 U.S. soldiers who were killed.
You're
in
wish
this
casting
mission.
an American disaster is amazing.
No.
It's incredible,
Scott. This mission has been a disaster. The motives have continued to change from one day to the next.
They have not.
The announcement today from the White House was almost identical to the announcement on March 2nd.
Can I just finish? I let everyone else speak. I haven't spoken. President Trump said he wanted unconditional surrender. He said he wanted regime change. We're not going to get unconditional surrender. We're not going to get regime change. We have another Ayatollah Khomeini now in charge. The same person, same person with a different person with the same name, essentially running the country right now. And maybe or maybe not, but we don't know what's going on because our government hasn't been truthful in telling us what we need to know about what's happening. And this is part of the problem.
What have they not been truthful about?
This is part of the problem with the administration because they've been dishonest about what their objectives were from the beginning. They've been dishonest about what they've accomplished from the beginning.
What's the evidence of dishonesty?
And they were dishonest about the Tomahawk missile.
What is the evidence of dishonesty?
The evidence of dishonesty would be, in August, they told us they had completely decimated Iran's nuclear program. Then we had to get at them because they were getting nukes. Then it wasn't about the nukes, it was about regime change. Then it wasn't about regime change, it was about terrorism. So they don't have their story straight. So that's what they haven't been honest about, Scott. And at $1 billion a day, $11,000 a second, the American people are allowed to ask what the problem is. And we're not going to laugh about it, okay?
The deeper issue usually comes down to accountability and whether the public is getting a clear picture of what a military mission is actually achieving. Analysts often point out that modern conflicts rarely deliver the clean, decisive outcomes politicians promise at the beginning. The Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan are clear examples. Both started with focused goals but gradually expanded into long and complex operations that lasted years beyond their original timelines. What began as targeted missions eventually turned into broader campaigns involving nation-building, regional stability efforts, and counterinsurgency strategies. That pattern has made many national security experts more cautious whenever leaders promise quick or definitive outcomes in complicated geopolitical situations. There's also the question of how military success is measured. According to assessments from the Congressional Research Service, destroying physical facilities connected to nuclear or weapons programs doesn't automatically eliminate the knowledge or technical capability behind them. In practical terms, airstrikes or missile attacks can delay development, but they rarely erase the scientific expertise that exists within a country. That's why non-proliferation specialists often stress the importance of inspections and monitoring carried out by organizations like the International Atomic Energy Agency. Without independent verification confirming what materials remain and what facilities are operational, it becomes difficult for outside observers to know whether a threat has actually been eliminated. Another major factor is the broader economic and human cost tied to prolonged conflicts. Research from the Brown University Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs estimates that post-9/11 military operations have cost the United States more than $8 trillion when long-term expenses like veteran care and interest on the national debt are included. Beyond the financial toll, those conflicts reshaped global alliances and left lasting instability in several regions, which is why many analysts stress the need for clear goals before expanding military action. Now, I found a clip of a debate between Scott Jennings and the CNN panel about a similar topic, so let's check that out.
Just a few weeks before all the shutdown stuff was going on, Kash Patel fired from the FBI a group of officers. Guess what? Their job is to study Iran. That was done by his FBI director. It was not done by the Democrats. This is an administration that has systematically weakened our own ability to deal with these sleeper cells. And now to say that we should be worried about sleeper cells, that's a little rich, don't you think?
Well, there's more.
So you're acknowledging their sleeper cells. And you're basically
You're
acknowledging the solution is, hey, let's not fund
Why did we fire the FBI guys?
Also,
sleeper cells. They tried to kill my friend here in New York City.
The Trump administration on a lot of things. That doesn't mean I'm sitting here and say, hey, the solution is let's not fund Homeland Security.
They tried to kill a friend of mine, an Iranian-American friend of mine here in New York City. There's no doubt that there are sleeper cells. We should be doubling up on the FBI's capacity to do that.
Democrats and Republicans have been highlighting
Firing the people who know how to do this is not the great place to start.
But does anyone here believe that we should keep the Department of Homeland Security, that's the name of it, indefinitely shut down to try to force ICE policy changes on an agency that's already funded until 2029, when you acknowledge there are sleeper cells, when we all see radical Islamic terrorists throwing IEDs in New York City, when we saw a radical Muslim terrorist shoot up a bar in Austin, when we had tornadoes in Oklahoma and Michigan this weekend, when we have TSA lines of 5 hours in airports, we have all these things going on. Is it even remotely reasonable?
What I believe is that Democrats and Republicans need to get their shit together. Everybody does at this particular time.
We're voting to reopen it.
Kash Patel.
The House is on recess.
As he just
they
mentioned,
already voted. It's sitting in the Senate.
Kash Patel, Kristi Noem, look as if they're swimming at a time where we need strong leadership, and we don't have it. That's what we're thirsting for.
Mark made it interesting, and I think you laid out actually a lot of changes that suggest that the administration acknowledged that they needed to make a change in terms of how their immigration enforcement was operating. So, I mean, it seems to me they've already moved quite a bit. There are only a few other things like masks and reinforcing Fourth Amendment protections that would get them over the finish line. Why can't we get over the finish line? And why not just lay that all out on the table and say, hey, Democrats, you wanted this, here you go. Let's open the government up.
I think Republicans, you just said, have given a lot of concessions on the policy they had, Abby. I think they're basically have given them a lot of things that Democrats asked for. At this point, again, in Sabrina's point about Republicans controlling all levels of government, it requires 60 votes in the Senate. Yeah. Every Republican has voted for it. Every Democrat has voted against it.
But don't you think that by comparison to the scope of the issue, masks on DHS agents and, again, reiterating existing Fourth Amendment protections are actually kind of small ball?
I mean, it's not even
it seems to me like that seems like an easy thing that Republicans could say, yeah, we're going to make some adjustments on that. Let's reopen the government.
I agree with you. I agree with you on the masking, Abby. But I think it's small ball on both sides.
Yeah, and
I just said that. I literally just said that. I mean, we don't have any. Right. I mean, like, thank you. I'm sorry, but leadership matters.
There you go. We came to an agreement on that one. Everyone, thank you very much for being here.
When discussions about national security start getting heated, the real issue usually isn't just partisan back and forth. It's whether the government is actually strengthening or weakening its ability to respond to real threats. Analysts often point out that intelligence capacity matters far more than political messaging. Counterterrorism experts have long warned that when specialized analysts who focus on regions like Iran are reassigned or removed, it can create blind spots in understanding evolving threats. Agencies like the Federal Bureau of Investigation rely heavily on experienced analysts who track networks, financing channels, and communications patterns over many years. That kind of institutional knowledge doesn't develop overnight, and once it's disrupted, rebuilding that expertise can take time and resources. Another part of this conversation that often gets overlooked is how domestic political battles can affect preparedness at home. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security is responsible for everything from airport screening and disaster response to cyber defense and counter-terror investigations. When funding fights or shutdown threats hit that agency, the ripple effects can be significant. Hiring freezes slow recruitment, training programs get delayed, and coordination between federal, state, and local authorities becomes harder to maintain. Researchers studying previous government shutdowns found that even short disruptions can reduce investigative capacity because administrative systems, contracting, and logistical support temporarily stall. There's also the broader question of how governments prioritize threats. Research from the Center for Strategic and International Studies shows that preventing extremist attacks inside the United States relies heavily on cooperation between federal intelligence agencies and local law enforcement partners. That system works best when agencies have stable funding, experienced personnel, and clear leadership. When the focus shifts too heavily toward political fights in Washington, operational priorities can slip behind messaging. Many analysts argue national security should not swing with political cycles. It requires steady investment, consistent leadership, and cooperation across parties to keep communities safe. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.